Hello, Spectrum Women. It is I, Becca Lory Hector, here, back with the next Asking Spectrum Women for September. I know I have been MIA for July and August, but I needed some time off and I was feeling a little spoonless and I had a whole bunch of other transitions to do in my own personal life. So I needed those 2 months to take off, but I am back in September and I am here to answer your questions. So get ready, people. Well, actually, I don't want to say Spectrum Women anymore. I want to say fans of Spectrum Women. So, because I know from absolutely from feedback that women are not the only people that watch Asking Spectrum Women. So, welcome back to all of the fans of Asking Spectrum Women. I appreciate it. I have some questions today that I'm going to attempt to answer to the best of my ability, and I hope that some other folks, besides those who've asked it, get some information that they need. So let's get started right away. Here we go. First question. I'm fairly new to finding out I'm autistic. I'm not sure I would have found out if I did not have an autistic child. And so he is 12, she's 49. So when she was 60, she found out that she is autistic. So here's a 60-year-old woman, and communication has always been my challenge. I either talk too much, I tend to get passionate about topics I like, and it seems like a lot of people don't appreciate that. Then I catch myself and overcompensate and almost stop in the middle of conversation. It's like stage fright. I usually try to avoid situations with a lot of potential conversations, but that is not always possible. I have tried strategies like try and pre rehearse them, but that's not very natural. I don't want to fix myself, but is there some way to manage my conversation challenge? All right, well, this is a perfect question. So let's think about this whole scenario. There is this weird, gray, totally neurotypical thing that happens in social situations where there is the set topics you're allowed to talk about in certain conversations, the amount of time and engagement you should spend on each topic, and none of these rules are ever told to us. They are never, we are supposed to glean them in that very neurotypical way where folks kind of manage through and understand the gray areas of socialness. Well, now that you know that you're autistic, you are welcome to the information that you will never be able to figure that stuff out because they are unwritten social rules that matter not to the autistic brain. Okay? They are social rules that we as autistics don't care about, but since the majority of the world, the majority of society is neurotypical, the neurotypical rules are the ones that get forward focus, right? So neurotypical settings where information isn't told but gleaned, where people learn things somehow magically, I don't know. And the truth of that is most people don't know, and they're just taking guesses just like we are. Here's the difference. Because we feel different and because we've been told that we communicate differently, we put it upon ourselves to feel self conscious when we make them uncomfortable. In this scenario, by being too excited or too long winded about a particular topic, right? Whereas other autistics will find joy in your joy and enjoy learning from you and hearing your excitement and all of that stuff. Neurotypicals, not so much. They are very self focused. So they want to talk about the things they care about, the things they find interesting, to the extent and length that they have determined, which they do not share freely, right? So there's a lot of guessing games. You are not alone in feeling that way. What I want to tell you is that those aren't the only conversations out there to be had. Now that you know that you're autistic, what you should do is seek out fellow autistics to communicate with, right? We love when you get long winded. We love to hear your passion. We'll share it back at you with our own passion, right? And so, limiting yourself isn't the answer. Fixing yourself, adjusting yourself, working on this challenge isn't the answer. Because the answer is there's no right answer, right? Neurotypicals just don't share it with us. And so instead of avoiding situations where you think there will be a lot of conversations, what I'd love for you to do is reframe it and say, I'm going to avoid situations where there is a lot of inauthentic conversation, right? Because those are the ones you're struggling with. The ones where the conversations really have no meaning, and whether you have passion about the topic or not matters not. It's just that you're networking and doing the social graces. So, what I want you to think about is that those social events come in two different categories, not actually about conversation itself, but the level and kind of conversation that you'll be having at these events. When you begin to regroup your conversations into authentic versus inauthentic, you will understand that you don't have to put as much energy into the inauthentic conversation. Just not worth it, right? You can be a listener, you can be an aha-er, you can be a head shaker. As long as you look like you're paying attention to the conversation, that's what those neurotypicals are looking for. If you're looking for real conversation, I highly suggest you go and seek out your fellow autistics. We love a good real conversation. Or find the neurotypicals in your life who enjoy that level of conversation too, right? That's the difference. Autistics really, we like real conversation. We like real talk about real things that people care about. Neurotypicals don't seem to care whether they do that or this other social graces kind of not really caring social conversation where they ask you how you are, but they don't really care about the answer, right? And in that case, it wastes your spoons to say anything more than fine, right? And so figuring out which are the authentic situations where there are authentic conversations happening versus ones where they are inauthentic conversations, I think will help you out a lot. If that's not helpful to you and you think you need a different answer, you have a more specific questioner, please feel free to email me at info@beccalory.com. And maybe I missed the question and I can kind of recalculate and give you some other resources. So that is question one. Good one. I like that one. Question. With a later in life diagnosis, what was one or few things that made you think you were autistic and seek a diagnosis? Please don't answer my child was diagnosed. I have no children. That would not be a good example to me. Okay, so helpful, right? What were some of the things or one of the few things, couple, that made you think you were autistic and seek a diagnosis? Okay. Here are the things that I felt deeply that clued me in. I felt deeply like I was an alien on another planet. I felt deeply like there was nobody else like me out there. I felt like I didn't belong, like I needed to constantly be adjusting myself for and adjusting myself in order to try and fit in enough to succeed. Like I just didn't fit ever, not at a certain point in my life, but like ever. So I never fit with my peers the right way. I never felt like I belonged. I thought very differently from other people. I made decisions very differently than other people. And the older I got, the more clear that became. And Unfortunately for me, a lot of people put that under the category of mental illness, right? Which meant that people were looking for a mental illness root cause. And so I was constantly being treated for my depression and my anxiety. But what was underlying all of that was a lot of trauma related to not being understood, right? Because my brain was different my whole life. And so I think I always knew that. I always felt different. Things that were easy for other people were hard for me, whereas things that were hard for them were easy for me. So school, studying, learning new things, details, skill sets, easy for me, right? Memorizing, easy for me. Figuring out what the right outfit is to wear somewhere, not easy for me. Figuring out what I can talk about, what I can't talk about in certain places, not easy for me, right? And so I found that that was my struggle. For me, the tipping point was that I was unable to find a profession, job, career, set an employment situation that really worked for me. I was unable to take care of myself in that way. And I had reached a point of feeling suicidal. I had reached a burnout point. And for me, that was really a red flag that something wasn't right. But figuring out what that not right thing was, and putting the finger on it being autism, for me was luck. For me, that was just circumstance and luck, and where I ended up looking and what I ended up seeing when I went looking, right? So my clues had been lifetime. My clues had been struggles and challenges that I had had. They were really the same struggles and challenges, but the situations were always different. And somehow, as I got older, they became more complicated, and it got put off into something else and called other things, but it was really the same struggles over and over and over again. And a lot of them laid in a place of, this is the box that society has created for you and you don't fit in there. So I highly recommend, if you are questioning and you think any of the things that I talked about or other things that are your own, maybe you're struggling with talking and having conversation in public, maybe you're struggling with your relationships, maybe it's something else, right? But whatever it is, the one book that I recommend to everybody, and Cynthia Kim, I wish to death you knew how many times I recommended this book. But it is called I Think I Might Be Autistic by Cynthia Kim. I think it's less than 100 pages. It's a really short book, and it gets right to the heart of it. And if you read it and you're still questioning at the end, then it's time to go get a diagnosis. So it's called I Think I Might Be Autistic. It is by Cynthia Kim, who is also autistic, and I highly recommend that you read it. I think that it will help clarify for you what things might fit into that category and help out a lot. Because the truth is, we all have our own brand of autism, and it looks different for all of us. And so blah, 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 blah. It's important that you know for you and that you follow a diagnostic process that works for you and just you. But this book will help clarify that a ton, I promise. Okay, moving on. Next question. How can we do better at networking so that those of us who have not been properly diagnosed yet can actually find somebody who is good at diagnosing adult women? The reason I worry about this is that I cannot get all the services I need at school because I don't have a proper diagnosis. The little bit that they'd allowed me to do in the blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is a question about seeking diagnosis, and this is a question about how to find the right professional. And what I want to tell you right now is that it's semi-bleak out there. We don't have professionals that are, we don't have a lot of professionals that are up for and trained for diagnosing autism in adulthood. Diagnosing autism in women, more specifically, is even more of a needle in a haystack. So you're right to be asking, and that would be the advice that I would tell you, is in groups that you are a part of that are local to you, start asking, where did people get diagnosed? Who did they go to? Who do they trust? Because that's how you're going to find that person. What you're looking for in that professional is somebody who is open-minded, someone who is forward-thinking, somebody who continued to get continuing education after their training, right? Who did continued training, who has stayed active in that training process. And that's because, very importantly, those people have stayed up to date with information as it comes out, and new testing and new things they should be looking for. Somebody who has gotten their training and got their degree and has not continued to do education in the field of autism and neurodiversity is going to miss you, right? So what you need is someone with the experience and the knowledge of current events in the autism and neurodiversity community, which to me also means a little bit of bias. You don't want to go to a professional who's too old. If they're too old, what they learned is gone and past, especially if they haven't stayed current and educating themselves. They haven't stayed reading the journals and reading the research and active in the communities. And so that's what I say to you. Somebody who is younger, is newer to the profession, and has learned and is still involved and passionate about what is current. That's what you're looking for. If you need a specific recommendation for a specific location, please email me at info@beccalory.com. I will do my best to give you a recommendation in your area or send you to someone who has one, because that's what it is. Right now it's word of mouth, and that's what we need. There is no regulatory body following the professionals that work with autism, in particular autism in adulthood and evaluations in adulthood. So please reach out. Please ask in your groups. Please look for people who get multiple recommendations. That's the stuff that you're looking for. And then remember that who you are hiring, and I want you to understand this, you are hiring an evaluator. That's what you're doing. So if you don't like the evaluator or the way the evaluation process went, please find somebody else. You're not happy with the results. You didn't hire the right person. It's okay to go for multiple evaluations if you can afford it. And it's okay to interview your possible evaluator before sitting down for the evaluation. So please make sure you take control of the parts of the situation that you can, because there are parts and those are them. That is my best advice. Let's see. Next question, and I think it might be our last one. Can you talk about body image struggles and autism? I'm struggling terribly with body image, my size and shape, a year into recovery. Also 1 year since ASD diagnosis. Okay, let's talk about that. I personally am somebody who struggles with body image. I think as autistic people, especially those of us who are living a life undiagnosed for the most part, struggle with body image because part of masking properly is making the package look right. So if you are overweight, that's not acceptable in society. If you're too thin, it's a little more acceptable, but still people will look at you, right? If we're not dressing in the way that's acceptable, if we're not doing our hair in the way that's acceptable, all of that, right, are possibilities of things that set us apart to be different. And so we try very hard in that masking period to not be different. And that means trying to fit into what society's standards of body image are. There is something very closely linked to a lot of this thinking, which is called body dysmorphia disorder. If you're somebody who truly is disordered in your thinking about the way that your body is, the way you see your body, that is a separate issue and can be a co-occurring condition to the autism. So separately, right, we also have a lot of commonalities with folks that struggle with eating disorders. We see disordered eating and disordered body image when we feel out of control of those things, and we seek to change that and take control over that piece because it's the one piece that we actually feel we can control. So understanding that there's a bunch of things in a mix here about body image, that some that have to do with your autism and some that are very much not related to your autism, but may be co-occurring with it. So if you are struggling with body image a year later, it's because you're struggling with image, period, right? You're trying to digest and understand this new identity. What I find interesting is that both diagnoses came together at the same time. So talk about a real awakening for you, right? So it's going to take time to digest this new identity. It's going to take time to get comfortable in that new skin and figure out how to be in it comfortably. The body part and the mental part, right? How you think about yourself. And those are all very deeply connected. So what I suggest is that you keep working at it. I suggest that the work is not done if you are still struggling, right? And it may never end. So don't think that a year later it's all over and you're all done digesting it. It's time to get out there and do some more therapy. Find a therapist that can understand both of the struggles and how they may come together. And look for some support groups where you can find some places to do some more work. You can look for a coach or a mentor like me to help you do the next stage of processing. But it sounds like you still need some help doing the process. And a year later, that doesn't surprise me. It took me, I was in therapy every 2 weeks solid for 6 years, almost 7 years after my diagnosis. There's no way a year later these issues have disappeared. So get back out there and work on it. Know that the work you're doing on you right now is probably the most important work that you'll ever have to do. So make it a priority and get out there and do it. If you're struggling, that means you still need help. So let's get out there and ask for the help that we need so we can build the lives that we really love. That's really the goal. Is it common? Yeah. Are you alone? Definitely not. So get out there and find a support system. We're out there. There are plenty of us who struggle with similar things as you do. So don't let yourself be alone in it. That will also help, knowing that you're not alone. All right. that is the best advice that I can give you. That's not to say it's the best advice in the world. So if you disagree with me, go out there and seek some other information. Make sure to do your research, do your homework. You are the most important thing to you in your life, period. You are the only one who will take care of you. So make yourself a priority. If you have any other questions or you have questions you'd love to see answered right here on Asking Spectrum Women, please feel free to put them right in the comments of wherever you're seeing this video or email them to me at info@beccalory.com. I'll pop them on the list, and the next recording of Asking Spectrum Women, there they will be. Yeah, so please feel free to ask me whatever it is that you're needing. Hopefully my answers help you, but also help somebody else not quite ready to ask the questions also. Thank you so much for spending some time with me this September for Asking Spectrum Women. I look forward to your questions and giving you a new episode in October. Have a good one, fans of Spectrum Women. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.